Namaskar. What's the relationship between spirituality and nature? Actually, the best example we have of this relationship is a newborn baby. Their purity, their innocence, and their joy make all of us happy to be around the infant child, because they've just come from the world of spirit and they've come in the physical form. The best way to experience the joy of nature and its gifts is by immersing ourselves in it. We feel relaxed, vital, alive, and whole. And we appreciate God's gifts in the form of the cool breeze in the summer day, or the swift flowing rivers and waterfalls that provide energy to our bodies, or the gifts in the forests, and so many other ways that make us feel so much connected to that higher consciousness when we're in nature. Most human beings today, they live in cities, and many of our illnesses today are because we're disconnected from nature by the way we live. Most of our lives in offices, cars, in our homes, and we get very little time to go outside, maybe even to see the sun. Some cities are so big, like Mexico City, 20 million plus people. So the paved streets and tall buildings don't allow us to get any sunshine or fresh air. For those that live in cities, it's very important, once in a while, maybe at least once a day, to get out into a park. Otherwise, that stress and tension that can build up can easily lead to depression and anxiety. So nature manifests itself in so many ways. And one of the ways in which we see it very obviously is when we're in the forests. There's so much abundant wild food. The yogis used to live in the forests, and they would enjoy the fruits and the berries that were there. And they could, like Totapuri, live to be 250 years old. And they could spend long hours in deep contemplation of the Supreme Consciousness. When we live in big cities, however, sometimes there's so much traffic and noise that we have to exit them. You have your own experiences in big cities where you come from. When it comes to the holiday time, the cities are empty. I remember in Buenos Aires, this would happen in the summer month of July. Or in Manila, in the long Easter weekend, the inhabitants would go to visit their friends or family, or maybe their second home in the countryside. And the normal route of the traffic that would take 3 hours on a normal day would take only about 20 minutes to navigate on that long Easter weekend. So in this way, we need the nature to connect to our deeper selves. And in fact, even the Gurukul, that was the ancient system of education in India. Gurukul means the house or the home of the teacher, the guru. They were in nature because the students could learn firsthand, practically, how the Supreme manifests itself in nature through the lakes and streams and the animals and plants that they lived with there. And of course, the diet, out of respect for the sacredness of life, was plant-based. And this enabled subtle nerves and subtle bodies that could imbibe the subtler vibrations of meditation practice. Most of our centers, our retreat places, are in nature, away from city life. And there we have many activities like schools or clinics, orphanages, even wellness centers, because it's in such a place where there's soil, there's water, there's air and sun, one could heal oneself very easily. And so we call these places master units. Another way of talking about master units is that they're rural, spiritually based eco-villages. And people who live there, they try to live a modest, spiritually inclined way of life. And they may have a livelihood which supports that. So some of the happiest times I've ever experienced were in these master units. And I've lived, for example, in Argentina and more recently in Eastern Canada, South Korea, and more recently in Eastern Canada. And when we would spend the whole day weeding, harvesting, and growing the fruits and vegetables and herbs that would be our food for the entire year. And I remember the Dada who I was with, he was from Ivory Coast. And so after a long day in the garden, his way of recovering was to lie in the sun and soak up the vitamin D from the sun and revive his tired body. So another beautiful story is about a young spiritual aspirant. And he approached his master and said, "Teach me about God realization." And so the master said, instead of talking to him, he gave him his herd of cows. And he said, "You roam the lands of India for the next 10 years with my herd of cows and see what you learn from nature about the Supreme Consciousness." And so the disciple took the herd of cows and he learned so many things in that 10-year sojourn. For example, he learned about cooperation from the billions of microorganisms that make up the soil. And they created those healthy soils that enabled his cows to grow fat on with the plants that grew from that soil. And he also could have healthy food. He learned about dutifulness from the sun that would rise every morning, and the birds that would welcome that sunrise with the chirping of the happiness. He learned about generosity from the forests, where the trees provide shade, shelter, food to anyone and everyone without asking anything in return. And so he learned so many things, hospitality from the waters, who their lakes and streams welcomed fish, swans, or aquatic creatures to live there and enjoy their lives. So in this way, he came back, he prostrated to his guru and said, "I have learned so many things from my 10-year journey." And he spent the rest of his life in that spiritual connection with the Supreme in meditation, which he had experienced every day in that 10-year journey. Well, we may not be as fortunate as that young aspirant to live 10 years in nature with a herd of cows. But what is the lesson here? The lesson is that we need nature to live happy, balanced lives. And even people that are not necessarily spiritual, they live on the land. They appreciate the sacredness of the land where they live. And this is the same sacredness of land that Aboriginals all over the world have for their land. So whenever we're feeling this tension or stress from city life, it's a sign that we have to seek nature, where we can get the peace and bliss, which is part and parcel of that way of life and that environment. May we all experience this every day in our lives. Thank you. Namaskar.